I feel like I've recorded this already. Hopefully not. I want to talk about Western historical fiction. I'm coming on with some recommendations, but a request. I need more recs, please. I only discovered, I think late last year, my love for Western historical fiction. And I need more of it in my life. Every single Western historical fiction book that I've read, I've enjoyed in some capacity. Have they all been like my favorite books ever? No. However, I will say I have read those that I have read. I've really enjoyed them. Even the one that I just finished, it was only like 3.5 stars, but it was still very enjoyable. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carly. I read and review historical fiction, primarily what you would probably consider book club historical fiction. Without further ado, let's get into this list of books that I have, but I want to hear from you. What Western historical fiction books do I need to read? I have a stack here, and I want to talk about each of these books, including the one book that I'm going to be starting soon that literally everyone and their mom has told me I need to read. Now, let's go through this list in no particular order, starting with Tough Luck by Sandra Dallas. I read this earlier this year, I believe, and I freaking loved it, y'all. It was so good. So it's kind of loosely inspired by or based on True Grit, which I know was a book that I have not read. Maybe I need to add that to my list, and a film which I really loved. And this book features a young female protagonist. She and her little brother run away from an orphanage and set out to find her father, who left home a long time ago to go mine for gold in Colorado. They join a wagon train, and along the way, they face like all these different hardships. They create really lasting bonds and friendships with some really unusual characters on the wagon train. And it's just full of humor and joy. And I really enjoyed the revenge story in this book. Was it the best book I've ever read? No. But I did find myself laughing aloud a lot. And I really, really, really enjoyed the found family element of this book. And yeah, I recommend it. If you recently watched my tribute to big books, then you already know that I'm going to recommend The Sweet Blue Distance by Sarah Donati, who is a beloved historical fiction author, just like Sandra Dallas, who I just mentioned. But I have not yet read any of her other work. I freaking loved this book, y'all. It is so good. It is big. It's very large. It's almost 800 pages, but it is just really this sweeping novel of a young woman who leaves home in New York, leaves her family behind to set out on an adventure to go be a nurse and midwife in the New Mexican territory. She wants to kind of go it on her own as a nurse midwife. And she gets this job. She sets out across the country on this journey. The first half of the book is her journey. Along the way, she meets this man, befriends this man who ultimately she falls in love with. And once she gets settled in New Mexico, she faces all these kind of just various trials and tribulations. I loved this book. As I said, it felt very sweeping. You follow this character over the course of this journey, and you just really... she's just so remarkable and bold and unsung. And I loved it. I loved the romance in this book. If you like your historical fiction with a heavy dose of romance, Closed Door, Fade to Black, very sweet, highly recommend. Another book that blew me away last year when I read this is Where the Lost Wonder by Amy Harmon. This was my first Harmon. It is not my favorite Harmon that I've since read, but it is very close. This is about a young woman who is widowed, if I remember correctly. She's a young widow, and she sets off with her in-laws on a wagon train on the Oregon Trail. And along the way, she gets into this, I don't even know what you call it. It is a romance. Again, at its heart, it's a romance, but it's very much a forced proximity, not even enemies to lovers, but I don't want to be with anybody to lovers. I don't know what that's called. I don't know what that trope is. she falls for this half Pawnee man who is escorting the wagon train. It's so good. What I loved about this book, and I'm going to talk about another book in comparison to this in a second, is the way that Harmon portrayed natives in this book. She took great care to do so as respectfully as she could, while also kind of conjuring up the whole idea of the savage. I don't know. I don't really know how to articulate what I'm trying to say. Probably should have thought about this a little bit more before I recorded this video, but I think that in comparison to the other book I'm going to talk about in a second, she handled it with care and respect. And there's an effort by the author to portray the conflict between natives and whites as very troubling and very, I don't know. I love that about this book, is that you got a glimpse of the native experience. And no, she is not native herself. She talks about in the author's note, she has this kind of unique relationship with native culture, but she is not native. So keep that in mind when you're reading this book. I would love if you have any recommendations by Native American authors that fall into the historical Western category. Please let me know. One for the Blackbird, One for the Crow by Olivia Hawker is a book that the BBFL, my online Fable book club, read earlier this year. And y'all, I freaking love this book so much. It is quiet. It is slow. It is character driven. It is mundane in the best way. It is all about two families who are forced to work together after an event transpires that puts them at odds. And these two families must come together to get through the winter in the Wyoming prairie. So good. Primarily told from the point of view of two teenagers, one in each family, and their mothers. And there is a sweet little romance element between the two teenagers. I don't want to give anything away, but it's pretty clear from word go that what's going to happen. But that doesn't take away from what this book is. This book is all about the mundanity, is that the word? And drudgery of prairie life. It is really good. It's beautifully written. This is my second Hawker, and I love the way she captures the world around her. It's almost like she's painting with a paintbrush, and you really get the sense of the prairie life and the beauty of prairie life in this book. The last physical book on this list that I have is To the Wild Horizon by Imogen Martin. That's right. The BBFL and I just finished this book, and I was a little bummed out about it, but I did enjoy it. The first half of this book I thought was really good. The second half, I got a little frustrated with the miscommunication trope that was happening in the romance, because this is another heavy-handed romance. It's sweet and it's closed door, but I don't know, the first half of the book, almost like Hawker, she did a great job of kind of conjuring up the experience of the Oregon Trail and the nature versus human element of the trail and what it was like to be an overlander. I loved that. We have this fierce female main character who at the beginning of the story has just shot a man because he is making physical advances on her in her rented room. She feels threatened. So she shoots him. He falls. He hits his head. She thinks she's killed him. So she and her young brother, because it's just the two of them, their parents recently died, set out. They pack immediately and set out the next morning on a wagon train. She poses as a married woman and says that her young brother is her young son. This particular wagon train is being accompanied by the military, and the captain of this outfit has this chip on his shoulder about women, and he does not believe that women should be allowed on the trail, especially women on their own. So for a long time, she hides the fact that she's on her own, that her husband is not with her. And over the course of the book, the two of them develop a romance. I really did enjoy the budding romance. There comes a point when the secret backstory of our FMC gets in the way of the romance, and it just kind of becomes very repetitive, and I was ready for that part of the book to be over. And in the end, it was sweetly wrapped up, nice, neat package. I recommend it, but don't go in expecting like a 5-star read. I don't know. Everyone in the group rated it 3.5 to 4 stars, including myself. I gave it 3.5. Again, I don't know. The miscommunication trope, when done well, I enjoy it. But this one, yeah. There was also the use of the amnesia trope, and another one that I'm just kind of like, I don't know. But I did enjoy it. Another book that isn't technically a Western, but it gave me the same experience is Blind Tiger. And I really freaking enjoyed this book. It's set in Texas, can't remember if it's East or West Texas. I want to say it's West. And it is all about this young woman who is widowed, and she is living with her father-in-law, and they start running booze. It's set during Prohibition. This cowboy comes to town and worlds kind of collide. It is very much an enemies to lovers story. It is very much a romance. I actually recommended this for my dad and added it to his TBR because I feel like this is one that men might enjoy as well. It's just well written. Yeah, Blind Tiger isn't a Western, but it has that feel. It felt like I was watching an old John Wayne movie, and I love that. One last book that I feel like fits the bill for Western historical fiction that I want to talk about is The Lost Wife by Susanna Moore. I enjoyed this. I thought it could have been a little bit more fleshed out. It's a very short book, and I remember reading it and thinking, man, I would have liked another 50 pages or so. It's about a woman who leaves her husband and child back home in the East Coast, travels to the frontier in Minnesota, ends up remarrying the local physician there. He is administering, medicine and medical care to natives in the area. She kind of has this connection to the Sioux women in the community there, but ultimately she and many other white female settlers are kidnapped in the Sioux uprising of 1862. While she is captive, she ends up falling for a Sioux man. It's interesting what the author does with this book because she very much paints the Sioux from the perspective of, they're the captors, they're the quote unquote bad guys, but she evokes sympathy in the reader because she explains why they're doing what they're doing. The U.S. government has encroached upon their land. They're not paying them their due. They're not supporting them in any way and not allowing them to support themselves. Many of the people in the tribe are starving. They're going without, and this was a way of retaliating. Because of that, you yourself feel conflicted about what's happening in the book. On top of that, you have the moral ambiguity of what's happening between her and this Sioux man who is essentially her captor. I thought it was well done. Again, was it the best book that I've ever read? No, but I found it compelling. I think that the author did a great job of kind of ratcheting up the tension, and I felt like I couldn't look away. Now, the one book that everyone says, if I like Western historical fiction, I have to read, and I just talked about this in my dedication to big books, is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This book is having a moment over on Book Talk, and everyone there is loving it. People are reading it, saying it's one of the best books that they've ever read. I am going to start this book. As I explained in that other post, I'm hoping to kind of chip away at this over the course of the rest of the year. It is extremely thick. It's over 1,000 pages. And I think I'm going to try and do a couple of chapters here or there. No big pressure to read this as quickly as I can. I want to really savor this book because so many people say that this is one of the best stories ever. It's got indelible characters that you're never going to forget. And yeah, I'm excited about it. So there you have it. I still consider myself a newbie to Western historical fiction, so I want to know, what books would you add to this stack? What do you think I should read next in that subgenre of historical fiction? But I want to dig deeper and I need your help. What do you think I should read next? What books would you add to this list?